Hello. So good afternoon, everyone. So how was the first session? So a warm welcome to DRONA, a special mentorship session to one and all. So in the second session, toppers Ms. Chinmaiee ma'am, All India rank 310, and Mr. Kiran Kamate, All India rank 53. So they are going to discuss about GS-2, so strategy and approach, and also answer writing framework and value addition technique. In detail, how to score 110 plus and 120 plus in GS2 in mains. So I'm going to welcome Ms. Chinmaiee ma'am and also Kiran Kamate sir. So please come sir, please come ma'am.
We will start off. Okay, attention. Good afternoon, everyone. How was first paper, first session? I'll be taking GS2 and GS3 tomorrow. GS2 and GS3, both I feel are, that is where the most dynamic papers among all the four. You have some certain of static syllabus and one, but 2 and 3 is where all this value addition you prepare, all the news items that you prepare, the editorials you read, all the data, facts, figures, judgments, all of this will come in paper 2 and paper 3. So I feel that is where it's the most dynamic paper. Now, first and foremost, let me clear this, that polity in prelims and polity in mains are two different things. So it is not that you have excelled, you have read multiple times the M. Lakshmikant textbook. Yes, that is just going to be the base. That is not going to be of much help. So we'll just start off with, I've made 4 modules, both of us sharing 2 each. So this is the GS2. First, I'll briefly explain the GS2 syllabus. This is strictly prepared based on the PYQ micro theme. Then we'll go, I'll you understand the various frameworks, then ultimately answers. So the session is for value enrichment, answer writing frameworks, analysis of PYQs, etc. So first, why do students fear GS2? I think who feels GS2 is difficult here? First of all, let me ask that. You can raise your hands. Yes, a lot of hands. I think most, as I said, it is because of the dynamic syllabus, predictable question, and too much current affairs. That's what I think most of you will be facing problems. But none of this is the real problem. The real problem is actually the fear of GS2 is not about the syllabus, it's about the fundamental misunderstanding of what UP is actually testing. As I said, most people think polity is, I've read, I'm Lakshmikant, now I'm ready to go and write GS2 answers. That's not, and international, irrespective of whether you are PSIR or not, PSIR optional or not, need to have good understanding of international relations. So the fundamental problem actually comes with the information versus interpretation. That is the problem. So most of us, you will be having information, will be knowing something, but the issue of interpretation. Interpretation is how do you interpret with respect to the demand of the question. Knowing about about the competition or any other constitution or anything that is polity syllabus, that is information. But how do I utilize that information to actually help you write good answers in GS2? That's the real problem, and that is also because, as I said, there is a critical gap between how students actually prepare and what UPSC actually rewards. So there's a gulf between expectations of UPSC and what actually the students prepare. So first of all, students treat current affairs as an end in itself. Go through, read the papers, just read them. That I have completed my news, I've read it, I've done my job. That is again, that is the primary deficiency in everyone's preparation, treating current affairs as an end itself. You have to ultimately link whatever editorials you study in paper, current affairs magazine. You have to ultimately link the syllabus of the paper and look at that with respect to PYQs, then understand where does this actually fall. So student treat current affairs as an end in itself. Accumulate, what do? You accumulate facts, dates, data, events, etc. But UPSC uses current affairs as a lens to test your understanding of deeper recurring themes and institutions. That's a very important thing. Nowhere asking what is the article or what is those are gone. The last 10 years ago now, it's about analysis, it's about understanding policies, the problems with the institute at much deeper level. The students who interprets outscores the student who merely forms. You are not expected to just write down all the data, facts, figure that you've by hearted and dumped answers. No more that is being recorded. So what most students see is constitution, governance, welfare and welfare schemes and IR naturally. About this, what students feel about GS. But what topper sees is governance, public outcomes, strategic interest. So you have to change that mindset first. So the 4 pillars of GS2. First is the polity. In polity, it's about how institutions are designed to function, from parliament and the executive to the constitutional body and the judiciary. Your understanding should be about how institutions are designed to function and not just cram up all the constitutional provisions, articles, and say I've done I'm done with M. Lakshmikant and I can ace polity part of GS-2. Similarly, with governance, you have to understand the basic. Your basic understanding should be of about how the state actually delivers, not about programs, policies, government. It is not enough to just know the details, the factual details of all the schemes. That is not what again wants you to. UPSC wants you to understand how the state actually delivers, examining the capacity, accountability, transparency, and administrative reform. Then social justice, whether outcomes actually improve for citizens. Usually it covers health, education, party, and human development. So here, whether outcomes actually really improve, whether outcomes actually improve for citizens. So it's about, it's not just about again cramming up all the various these machineries for related to internationally, again about strategic interests and not just about US, the trade, this is the deficit, etc. Not about numbers, just about analysis. How do you utilize those numbers to speak for themselves? You have to not just dump the data and explain or tell how why this data matters. Why you can only utilize the data, facts, figures to substantiate something, your argument, and not themselves cannot be arguments. So you have to understand that fact. So UPSC does not ask topics. Does not, like, you have to understand, it does not ask topic. If it asks if there is a topic on governor, the what UPSC actually asks is about federalism and center state, not about governor. What is the article? What is the functions, powers, privileges of governor? No, these were again questions 10-15 years ago. The exam has evolved a lot. Now when a question on this in GS2 about governor is asked, it is really linked to federalism, interstate relations. Similarly, judiciary, not asking what is the structure of Indian judiciary, powers of that is all glimpse knowledge. In mains, it will be about accountability and independence. If you go back to 2025, just to question, there was a question on constitutional morality linked accountability. So nowhere it was about what is judiciary, what is the structure of judiciary, why is it in certain way, what are the what is its origin, or not all that basic things, all those basic things are nowhere asked. Things have changed a lot. That is where your current affairs, your newspaper, and your static notes all come into one picture, and you have to understand the difference between information and interpretation. You have to start interpreting whenever an article comes on governor's powers, on governor. You have to link it, understand to why such crises are happening, rather than just rote learning. As I said, the articles, etc. about the, what I mean to say is just the prelims aspect of governor. Now, when question comes on health schemes, it's really about does not ask about what is PM Jan Arogya Yojana. It will be about access and delivery gaps. What are the where is it failing? What needs to be done more? Critically analyze the PMJ. It will be nuanced. It will be much more deeper. Same with education policy or even on international relations. So every question has 3 layers. What I want to, every question has 3 layers. There will be a current affairs. Every question will not be directly coming in on the paper. There will be some trigger point in the background that has led to the origin of that question on the day of the paper. So there will be a current affairs source of those questions. That will be the immediate trigger. Suddenly, no question is random in you. There will be a reason why it finds its GS2 paper. So let's say there's a there was a issue with the judicial accountability. There was a event where a lot of hoards of cash were found in a residence of a near judge. Yes, not take the names. Okay, so that was the trigger point, and that is why question constitutes morality and judicial independence, accountability. So there will be a current affair, that is the trigger point, and that is why a question comes in. So the next will be, you have to understand where does this fit in the syllabus. You have to understand micro theme, context linking to syllabus area. So any newspaper item you are it back to syllabus. Where does this item fall in the new syllabus? That's why you have to, even as Chinmaiee madam highlighted, even the orientation session, that you have to understand, first of all, read and memorize the syllabus out and out. Without that, not be understanding which topic comes where. Be just blindly studying. You have to understand that. You have to understand the syllabus first very clearly. Okay. Then there will be the core issue, underlying concept testing. To understand the underlying concept that you testing. Current affairs is a trigger point. You map it in. Then now every question UPSC sets follows this structure. The current affairs is merely the entry point. The real test lies at underlying concept UPSC is actually testing. The trigger point might be governor issue, but the question that they are asking is much deeper. Interstate relation, federalism, so all of this, and not just about governor. So when a question on governor comes, federalism and state balance comes on malnutrition, about policy and delivery field. About China question, it's about strategy. This should be a universal answer writing framework for GS. Always define the problem clearly. You can start off with introduction. When you're starting with the introduction, the very basic form of introduction is definition based introduction. But if you followed the news items very precisely, accurately, long period of time, you followed it up with current affairs magazine, they will actually understand why this question came. That itself, the context of the matter can itself be the introduction. That will set your answer apart from the rest. So first define the problem clearly, the central issue, find the key aspects, then structural causes, identify the system drivers, examine the institute setup. Now question on, again I'll take the governor example itself to understand why the role of governor was made such. Have an understanding of that, then you can better able to criticize or analytically critique his role. So this should be, so you should be able to identify critical causes. And any topic in GS Mains, the topic, anything that you have to understand the causes that led to this topic, and once the topic event is happening, what is the implications of it. This is very important. So always understand causes of that particular topic, implication, and then there are implications, they're negative, you have to address it. Then if they're positive implications, highlight it, and that is where you are including in the way forward. So this should be a way of answer writing. An answer writing at least should have this. So this is not some structure or framework, but this is just understanding of what a normal answer, an average answer in a GS2 should look like. So there will be an issue to anchor your answer in the core problem. Then you show causes that led to a certain event. That will show the depth of your understanding, and you are not directly answering the question, but understanding, telling him what caused this. Can be applied to GS-1, 2, 3, 4. Question on even GS-1 or GS-3, you can always explain him the causes, show a much deeper understanding. Then you are explaining the implications. This will show your analytical range. Then you are, as a policy maker, as a bureaucrat, as a civil servant, you are going to frame solutions. You're not going to end with problems only. You're going to tell them what are the solutions. Two approaches. For example, a normal average aspirant will just look at syllabus, make notes, keep compiling notes, collecting notes across institutions. That is what we were discussing, that you could highlight and explain that. Yes, so don't be notes collector, become district service notes current affairs. That's what an average aspirant is. But what you should be actually doing, analyze first. Don't even analyze anything. Go through the PYQs first. Go through the questions, understand what are the recurring themes. Every year there will be recurring themes again and again. To understand those micro themes, then by answering again and again, we'll understand that there are some certain frameworks which again we discuss. Come across a lot of, then you actually start answer writing. Most people think they're starting answer writing even for this, not even going through the syllabus. They're just starting answer writing by looking at answering to current affairs editorials. That is a wrong way of answer writing. Be demotivated to write answers. Once you've done this, then start answer writing, much better. So polity focuses on constitutional conflict, governance on delivery bottlenecks. For example, constitutional conflicts in polity was like question on the security and liberty. You have the UAP Act, then, but it is also taking away the fundamental rights. So that is a conflict.
Privacy. UPSC is not testing whether you know what is right to privacy. UPSC does not want to know if you know it is under Article 21. UPSC does not want to know if you know of the Puttaswamy judgment or not. What UPSC wants to know is whether you're identifying the competing constitutional values that are there. I wouldn't say conflicting, they're competing. Whether the liberty of an individual takes precedence over security of the state. So here, this is a paper with depth. So now that will come only when you start training your mind to think and analyze on these competing constitutional values.
Governance is about delivery bottlenecks, so it's about structural deficits. IR is about strategic. Now the roadmap ahead, I'll cover each of these. Start off quick. Polity. I'll be there.
Okay, like we followed for GS paper 1, I would again tell you to do the same suit for GS paper 2. So generally we divide this paper into 3 arcs. What are the 3 arcs? Polity and governance, social justice and social issues is the second arc, international relations. Too close. International relations is the third arc, right? So who will tell me polity and governance generally carries how many marks? You have to approach UPSC mains exam with a scientific approach. First, understand what is the marks division. then prioritize your preparation. Demand-based supply, right? So polity and governance carries 150 to 160 marks on an average, depending on the last 5 years papers. Then social justice and social issues, 40 to 50 marks, right? And international relations, definitely 50. Generally, it is question 9, question 10, question 19, and question 20 for IR. So now we understand the split of marks. So in terms of prioritizing your preparation also, you know what to prioritize and how much time to give, right? So for polity, in this paper, so I told you that this is a paper with depth. UPSC doesn't want to know if you know the concept or not. It wants to know how deeply you can analyze and see the competing constitutional values that are there. For example, sir and I were discussing that there was a question on parliamentary privileges. UPSC does not want to know if you know Article 105 or Article 194. It wants you to explain parliamentary privileges in light of liberty, democracy, and other constitutional values. So if you want to add to that point.
That's it. It's about competing values, security versus rights. There is center versus state. You have a lot of surrounding the parliamentary privileges, parliamentary and rights of fundamental rights of the people. There is rights to privacy versus what the government actually wants to do, the security of the state. So you have number of these conflicts, and UPSC wants whether you are understanding the depth of conflict between the two and how they are competing against each other. See, both of them are not wrong. It's just that how are you visualizing it? Are you wanting? Are you trying to see only from one perspective or trying to see it from both perspectives? So UPSC rewards analysis, and what is analysis? The ability to see a theme from both side of the from both perspective. So all of these are just like two faces of the same coin. Should not be just looking at only one perspective, and have the ability to understand, critique, analyze both sides of the issue, and show that yeah, this is competing, and this should be the way forward.
So how do you prepare for polity for GS paper 2? Just by reading Lakshmikant, you cannot prepare for it, right? You remember the same thing that we did for GS paper 1? We picked out all the keywords, tried to make notes. Okay, here we have to go one step beyond. This is the paper where UPSC wants you to think like an officer, right? So now, for example, federalism. Federalism is a very important and hot topic of UPSC, and it will test you whether you know what kind of state we live in, whether India is a federal state in the true essence, or whether it's a quasi-federal state. Now, in like, if there is a question on federalism, first you'll write maybe probably a statement by K. Severi saying India is a quasi-federal state, and then you will go on to explain your answer. So in polity, you need a list of thinkers, right? List of thinkers or judges who have given various critical statements or important statements. So this will show the depth in your answer. Otherwise, there is no difference between an answer and a good answer and a better answer. Then you will also have a compendium of basic cases. For example, Keshavananda Bharati, Puttaswamy judgment, Minerva Mills, SR Bommai, IR Coelho. For example, if there is an ordinance question, you will write Article 123. There is no way you can finish an ordinance question without writing DC Vadva case. So all these trigger points or the controversial aspects like discretionary power of the governor. Now you have the recent Tamil Nadu governor judgment. So all these things will come in your compendium. You should have a list of cases, basic case laws to address these questions. Other than that, you will also have certain facts and figures. So where are you compiling these facts and figures from? Okay, facts and figures primarily for social justice paper. I'm screaming on the. Okay, for governance, you will need more of examples. For example, the e-Seva initiative in Andhra Pradesh, the Bhumi project in Karnataka.
Services Act in Rajasthan, have Right to Information Act, have the various, especially I feel Karnataka government is a pioneer in e-governance. A lot of the Jane, have Kutumba, Kata, all of this you can directly utilize as examples. Then there are certain schemes, policies, the neighboring states as well. They have done wonderful. And directly quote those examples. Then a right to health actually is a fundamental right in Rajasthan. So they have precisely made a scheme pertaining to that. You can, it's a wonderful initiative. You can directly quote that as an example in governance. So governance, you need a lot of examples. It's not that you're just going to write about transparency, accountability, efficiency, etc. Those are very like, those are pointers, but you have to, everyone knows governance with digital services will increase, inclusivity will increase. Those are the primary basic things. You have to argue with facts. Now you have to substantiate with numbers. You have to showcase that after this scheme, the inclusion was this, the digital divide reduced by these numbers. So all of these are government numbers. Compile a lot of them from newspapers, from current affairs magazines. There are certain, I feel there's resources. It's a wonderful document by the government of India itself. The 11-year government document was released last year during the mains. You can go and download the official document. There you have lots of data that you can utilize across GS2, across GS. So it's a 11-year policy, 11-year achievements document by the government. Examples here. Judicial accountability and judicial activism. This is a very hot topic. Always a question will be on judicial activism, judicial overreach, separation of powers, checks and balances, constitutional morality. This is a favorite buzzword of UPSC. Every year there will be a question on constitutional morality, or you can always utilize this word as a conclusion, etc. Then questions on electoral integrity. Last year, 2024, the first question was on one election, one nation, one election, electoral reforms. Then there is questions on cooperative and competitive federalism. This again is a very famous, very a theme that keeps repeating very often in GS2. So that is one thing. Then doctrine of pith and substance, doctrine of severability, of doctrine of eclipse. Usually what happens, these are 6 pillars of polity. First you have the constitution. Now what are usually asked? About fundamental rights, DPSPs, amendments. There was a direct question last year about amendments, the substantial and the normal process of amendments, then about basic structure. Second pillar will be parliament. Again, we talked about privileges. This was a topic that kept coming, was also expected last year because of the uh, Soren, the Soren case, landmark judgment. Then you have questions on speakers, on committees, on parliamentary committees. Again, it's a theme that keeps repeating. About judiciary, it will be as we discussed. Yes, yes. See, what you or I or ma'am or anyone here talk about governor or about one nation will not hold water. We are, as she said, we are not thinkers. We are not, you know, experts in those topics. So you have to defend your argument. You have to argue, substantiate with lot of these committees recommendations about directly utilizing the names of those writers, thinkers, etc., or philosophers, everyone. So you have to directly use the names of various judges who have had certain views about a theme. So you collect. Where do you get all of this? This is purely only from the newspaper. That is what will ultimately help you in understanding critically. So in judiciary, questions will be on activism, on judicial accountability, like last year. Tribunals, again, this was a question that came last year. Separation of powers, lot of PYQs on this theme. Then on federalism, the hot topic, hottest, I feel the most asked topic in GS2, governor, fiscal federalism, center-state relations, etc. Then the fifth will be constitution body on ECI, the election commission, the CAG, the UPSC, FC had commission on questions, two questions in the last 5 years on FC. Then electoral reforms. In, as I said, at least alternate year there will be question on electoral reforms. Questions on the representation of People's Act 22. There was a question. 24. There was a question. Then last year. Then campaign finance. Then political parties. So these are the six.
And for the governance part, you can use RTI, citizen charter, case studies, best examples, some examples of whistleblowers, all in your answers. Because so many of these questions will be at intersection of both polity and governance. So you can't delineate exactly, but you'll have to use these examples as your fodder points.
We'll just take a sample question. Consider the actual UPSC question here. The governance office has become controversial in recent times. So here, what most people will only answer this part, governor. That's what you've read in. That's what you've read in M. Lakshmika. But the deeper question you have to, he's expecting you to answer, has become controversial in recent times. Now, when this comes, you should have a lot of examples that have happened in the recent years. Now, you cannot give examples that were like decades ago. Now, that is, then why it is controversial? You have to understand that. It was just the trigger point. But the actual question here is, it has, the office of governor has been controversial in recent times. You have to, the question actually is asking about, the underlying theme is federalism. The question is about center-state relations. The question is about constitutional morality. Why constitutional morality? First of all, what is constitutional morality?
Is there anybody who can tell what is constitutional morality?
Yes, that is, yes.
Also, this forms a, these 4 points, right? It forms a cheat code for your polity and governance answers.
Yes.
You have to analyze through the lens of these 4 points. You remember in the morning I told you about individual level, societal level, national level, and globally, right? So now for polity questions, you analyze the questions from the lens of federalism, constitutional morality, democratic accountability, and center-state relations. So whenever something comes in the newspaper also, put on your thinking hats and try to analyze that piece of news from the lens of these 4 points, right?
This is, again, as ma'am said, this is a cheat code. This is how you have to develop based on number of reading. You will automatically understand, come across all of these on your own. So, and if you start observing answers of various toppers, then you think of compare it with this lens, then you will understand these are writing the same points, which was not coming naturally to you. When you have a framework or a thinking capacity in that direction, that sets the tone of how you go about answer writing. So you have to just write on these 6 lens, you will have 6 different
If you
points.
could just write down those 4 points in your books, it won't help you now, but when you write the mains,
Yes.
it will definitely be of help to you.
Here most answers will only basic answer will only cover about governor, but a correct answer unpacks federalism. It should consider federalism, how the role is interacting with federalism, how it is tilting it towards a unitary form of uh, federalism. Then constitutional morality. Now, whenever he acts in a way that is against what was the office of the governor was supposed to do, he's basically not showing constitutional morality, he's digressing from it. Then when he acts in a particular, in a partisan way, in a shows bias to a particular party, he's digressing from the constitutional morality. Then democratic accountability, some of his actions are not accountable. For example, the Tamil Nadu governor's case, the governor was not he was not assenting to 13 of the bills that was legitimately passed by the state legislature, but he was nowhere being accountable, held accountable. Then what did it do? It led to disturbance in the center state relations. And finally, judicial review. That is what happened and got course corrected in the meantime. So this is how you have to start thinking and not just focus your energy and thinking capacity only on governor. It's you connect to all of these lens. Then your answer will be multidimensional. It will show analytical depth. Then evaluator will finally understand that yes, this candidate knows how to think, how to write, and how to analyze. This is again based on the various PYQ. These are some micro themes that keep repeating. So whenever you come across all of these in newspaper, you should bring in all those ideas into your value addition note. First is governor, then parliamentary committees, judiciary. You should have a good data of and lots of opinions, critiques, statements by various judges, critics of judiciary, etc. There's some Pratap Bhanu writes for the Indian Express. He's a vocal critic of the judiciary. So you collect points from him whenever you want to write a side of a question that is critiquing the institution of judiciary. You can directly state Pratap Bhanu Mehta writes, or you can write a statement in the bracket, mention his name.
Just adding, so since was talking about judiciary, I wanted to explore all the different components related or interrelated with judiciary. For example, judicial activism, judicial overreach, judicial innovation, judicial accountability. So all these are interrelated, right? So you have to know what each of these terms mean, right?
Then federalism is the most, again, repeated micro theme. Election Commission of India, constitution, morality, local government You have huge number of questions on PRIs, ULBs. So again, you will have a lot of articles also on the local government.
We often refer to this as applied polity. For example, local self-government, like the 73rd constitutional amendment also which came, we were trying to enforce one of the DPSPs, right? So this is where polity came into action, applied polity. So you have to know everything about local self-governance and participatory form of governance. Then we have pressure groups. So jot down some good examples of pressure groups. How do pressure groups help in a democracy? What are the different manifestations of pressure groups in India? Okay. Then about political parties.
Political parties, then separation of powers. This again a repeated huge collection of case laws on separation of powers. Some of them being the Rajnarayan versus Indira Gandhi. Then you have Sir Bommai case, etc. So this is what we were discussing. UPSC rarely asks what is federalism, define constitutional morality, explain judicial review. These were the questions 10-15 years ago. Now UPSC asking how Indian federalism became more cooperative. Sorry, has the Indian federalism more cooperative? Has the governor become the agent of the center? These are the kind of questions. It puts debate. It puts you into an argument. And should show both sides of the story. No, the governor is not an agent of the center. Yes, the governor has become the agent of the center. Then you substantiate with various examples where he has acted in a particular way. That is how you have to substantiate your answer. Then you come up with views of various writers, thinkers, political thinkers, etc. Then combine both and say what is the way forward. Yes, you are acknowledging there exists a problem. Now this is how this is the reforms, this is the way forward. That is where you bring recommendations of Punchi Commission, of the Sarkaria Commission, of the recent Tamil Nadu also framed a committee, center states.
Or the judgment of the Supreme Court in the recent governor case,
Yes.
Tamil Nadu governor
Yes,
case.
you can always utilize Supreme Court judgments as a way forward. Then that is how you should go about writing an answer. Then does GST strengthen or weaken federalism? Is judicial activism a threat to separation of powers? You're first defining separation of powers, defining connecting SOP, separation of powers. No, yes, it is a threat to separation of powers. You give out a list of 5-6 points, substantiate with examples. Then you say, no, it is not a threat to separation of powers. Again, you give reason that has actually helped. Then write a way forward. Core insight is UPSC, every UPSC polity question is about, it is surrounding around a tension, a conflict, or a competitive or contested idea we discussed. Not a very textbook based question. So you must prepare, your preparation must shift from what institutions are to how they perform, why they fail. So you have that lens, how they perform, what the institutions are, how they perform, and why they fail. That is the lens you should. No institution perfect. That's why the question: if federalism was a perfect form of federalism that India had, then there would be absolutely no question. There would be no critic of Sevier or Ivor Jennings or Alexandrovich, etc. The brainstorming framework for every polity question. So at least this is not an exhaustive framework. There cannot be an exhaustive framework. At least it should cover some of these lenses.
I wish I had these pointers when I was writing. I think I would have written.
Yes. So every question, again, we'll take the example of governor. Go back. The first 10 prima facie, it should have all of this. Have articles 153, 154. What does 153 say? There shall be a governor of every state. Then various other provisions, fundamental rights. This, so any question article, the right to privacy. Cannot have an answer without mentioning that it is part of Article 21. It stems from the K.S. Puttaswamy judgment. Then the second framework or second lens be democratic. It should think about representation, about accountability, about political participation. This again, institutional. You should talk about the roles, function, independence, etc. Of now you can tweak it around with questions, governor or EC, etc. And apply this. You will have at least some way of answer rating, some rating point. Ultimately, you should have you will be having the basic content because of Lakshmi, yes, mains oriented notes, because of newspaper, current affairs, etc. But how do I utilize that knowledge and think about frameworks, generate points in a limited span? Remember, you ultimately have 7 minutes, write a 10 marker question. You have 11 minutes for 15 marker question. There you cannot think and spend the first 2-3 minutes on thinking. Come in very naturally because you have to understand the question, take the question, address it, answer it, write in a legible handwriting, then conclude. 7 minutes, how it will vanish. So there you are not spending too. Brainstorming comes in. Brainstorming will help you generating points quickly, even as you are also writing. Once you are writing, the next point should coming.
Is your cheat code for brainstorming? Like, for example, if there might be people sitting here saying, ma'am, I cannot think through the lens of these points that you're stating. So now I have already given you those pointers. You have to only start thinking from that perspective. In the morning, I gave you P, S, T, G, H, something, right? And I also gave you individual, societal, national, and global. Now for polity, you have this as a cheat code. So you will use these 6-7 pointers and start analyzing everything from the lens of these 6 pointers. This is how you have to go by for polity and governance questions.
The federal angle, governance angle, the citizen perspective. You can always think on these lines. Just note down. Institutional governance, federal.
Constitutional angle, democratic angle, institutional angle, governance angle, citizen from the perspective of citizen, and federal angle. And there was one more, constitutional morality.
An angle. You can think in terms of Supreme Court judgment. Framework in action. We'll just take an example so you understand. Activism. Judicial activism strengthens democracy. Discuss. To apply the same sequence, you will have certain answers.
What do we do when we see the word discuss? We discussed in the morning. What do we do when we see discuss? Now this should start flowing to you naturally. As soon as you see the word discuss, you should understand what I have to do. As soon as I see illustrate, I should understand what I have to do. Critically analyze, my brain should immediately start operating like that. Till you finish writing the mains, at least it has to start operating like that.
Yes. So should constitutional lens should answer about article. It should include Article 32. What is Article 32? Why is judiciary being active? Why is it being active? When there exists executive and legislature, it is going beyond its sphere of influence and acting in a way probably shadows the other organs.
Guys, this is a mentorship session. We all have to brainstorm together. This is not a one-way process. It's a two-way process. So even if you guys respond only, we'll also be incentivized to go one step beyond our capability also and try and answer your questions. So let's just brainstorm this question together. Let's do this together. Judicial activism strengthens democracy. What does it sound like? Yes. Protecting the rights of the individuals, right? Immediately, Article 32 comes into your brain. And also one important case law comes to your mind. Judicial activism. One important case law comes to your mind, no?
How was it? Activism? Yes. Is one can be considered.
Yeah.
Yes, because the executive failed to produce a certain law in that area. That is when Vishaka judgment came in and filled that void. Examples.
Sorry?
It took bonus on itself.
Okay, there are many cases on judicial activism. So immediately, the moment you see this word judicial activism, immediately case law should flow through your
You
mind.
should flood the answer with lot of judgments. That is why it is important to have a collection of all these Supreme Court judgments. And it is not that you are just only going to collect and to read them again and again, because these things are very volatile in nature. Until and unless you keep revising, revisiting them again and again, you will not understand. You have to mentally see where does this case law fit in? Where can I utilize this? So that exercise you should be doing. Else it will not come naturally for you to bring that judgment into the answer.
And on a daily basis, you're seeing some or the other news on judicial activism, judicial innovation, judicial overreach. So, in such instances, you know that this year they have asked you about judicial activism. So, you will immediately prepare for those other terms. Now, if I give you those terms, will you be able to tell me case law saying, ma'am, this was judicial overreach, this is an example for judicial overreach, or this is an example for judicial innovation? So that's how you need to learn to start preparing. Like I said, we're not here to teach you the subject. We're only here to teach you how to stimulate your minds to think about a subject.
From institutional lens, as we said, it is focusing on separation. It is taking away powers or what was originally for the executive. So it is violating separation of powers. That's a critique. Judicial independence, certain people will defend it as saying it is only doing its duty, protecting the rights of the people. So it is doing what is supposed to do, collegium system. So these are certain things. Democratic lens, counter majoritarian role, protecting the minorities from the tyranny of the majority. The Hossein Khatun case that led to the genesis of trial. Why? What was it about? It's about prisoners who were under trials, who were stuck in jails beyond their jail time, even before having an the case being taken up. So that is why PIL had to be there. That is why judicial activism had to come in. So then citizens lens, access to justice, the right to livelihood. What is that case? Right to livelihood case that came up in BMC, Bombay Municipal Commission. Yes, that you can mention. So basically, judicial activism is about protecting rights of the people. Then governance, highlight the vacuum, etc. So this gives you a lens to think about. Ultimately, now you have written all your body, etc. Now you're concluding. You're not concluding. You've written very wonderful introduction, which I said has to come from newspaper. The context, you tell the context that will set about the introduction. Then you up your body of the answer, then there will be conclusion. Most of them will just, the answer will just taper off after writing this, all of this. You should write a powerful conclusion, be it just 2 lines, but you have to include a conclusion. So I feel you conclude with conviction, I would say. So always anchor your answer. These are again some frame. You can always anchor your answer around constitutional morality. You can always bring that governor question and end with constitutional morality and say the governor has to adhere to the doctrine of the cause of constitutional morality. You can always bring with respect to cooperative federalism. There's a quote by Honorable PM Modi on this. You can directly utilize that quote. Then participative governance, constitution. These are again frameworks around which you can end your polity answers. Always end your conclusion, conviction, and final polity formula. Go through the PYQs first, mandatorily. Then you understand the various themes. That is when you are on those lines, your notes. Most people are directly like, I want to make notes for mains. What is the basis of making? Where are you going to start and where are you going to end? So you should have a context. Context is given by PY, then micro theme. That is when you will understand how to actually make notes. Else for mains, what happens? You can begin, never end, never ending current affairs get adding up. You will never finish. That is why. So then develop a framework. Is the framework proper copies? Then you understand there is a framework or any other that you find. You can develop it on your own. Then you mentions. Then you finally answer. Without all of this, you want to jump into answer writing. What will you write? Without all of this, what will you even write? Just the same old Lakshmika will be tired writing half a page. That you will be exhausted. That you will be running out of ideas. And what you will do is repeating the same thing, second page. Go through and understand the themes, micro themes, etc. So the broad key takeaways: understand the conflicts, not chapters. Micro themes over syllabus. You have to understand what is the micro themes. Look at these 6 lenses in the answer. Then you always conclude the way. Then
Stand by.
what is governance? Okay.
No. Also, governance has a lot of overlap with ethics, if you see. Right? So, applied polity is also a form of governance. Right? So, governance related aspects, you have to fill the answer paper with examples, case studies. Right?
Case studies can also come from KIO's best practices model. Go through that. Testing best practice. And
So many people think that, governance paper, we will fill the governance paper with schemes. You write Ayushman Bharat, you write PM Kisan. So what exactly is the demand? What exactly does UPSC want you to analyze? See if there is a policy in place. whether there is a policy formulation that is required, or whether the policy which has been formulated, is it being implemented? Is there a gap between policy formulation and policy implementation, right? So this goes a step beyond just mugging up and writing, more depth, paper 2.
That is what most people will just write about government scheme, but what actually UPSC is asking is whether the state can deliver. Governance is also about state capacity of the state to deliver. So governance is state capacity. We can go through all of this, like policies. There are 5 pillars of governance: policies, institutions. Government will frame a policy, for example, the national health policy. Now, to implement that, there will be certain. Then there is civil services. Then there is technology to prove those services. Then there is citizen participation. Governance part revolves around 5 pillars.
Again, this is like a cheat code again to address governance related material. If you have a 1-pager on each of these points and sub points that are prepared with you, no one can beat you in governance questions, right? You can have a page on SHGs, examples, Kudumbashri, etc. 1 page on NGOs, 1 page on social audit, 1 page on RTI, things like that. So if you're smart enough, you will capture all of this and try to get 1 page done so that your governance is done. So the governance syllabus at a glance can be divided into 5 heads. One is civil services, how civil services can be made better, the reforms, lateral entry, Mission Karma Yogi recently been introduced. What are the pros and pros only, not no cons yet. So what are the pros of Mission Karma Yogi? How are we reforming the civil services? So that's one component. Next component is transparency and accountability. What are different measures that have been taken to introduce more transparency and accountability? We keep saying that there is so much opacity in governance in India, and what are the protests all about, right? So this transparency and accountability, all these steps become important. Again, cheat code for you. 1 page on RTI, 1 page on citizen charter, 1 page on social audit, and grievance redressal. The problem was that when I started studying, I had nobody to give me this cheat code. If I had this readily available, readily accessible, I think a lot of time would have been saved. Next, third component is participation. What are the different levels of participation and different forms of participation? SHGs, right? NGOs, different kind of participation. Pressure groups, what are the different kinds of pressure groups in India, right? What are the different kinds of pressure groups in India? Everything that you know, there's nothing that you don't know. Tell me. Okay. Yes. Yes. Then anybody who's putting their demands collectively, it's a pressure group, right? Student groups, okay. So these are all things that you already know. It's just 1 click away. Ask ChatGPT, tell me the different forms of pressure groups I need to know for UPSC. Tell ChatGPT, this is for UPSC. It will give you a list of examples also, okay? Then community organizations, that is the third component. E-governance. Because we live in a digital era, e-governance becomes very important. What e-governance can do in a country or in a democracy such as India is great. I mean, it has great results that it can give. What are the different forms of e-governance? Digital governance, AI, digital public infrastructure. In the morning, we studied about, there was some, right? That can come as an e-governance question, right? See that there is an overlap there, but there you answer it from the lens of society, right? But here you answer it from the lens of governance. Next, regulation. Different tribunals are introduced. Recently, we see a lot of news on tribunalization of justice. What is this? So this is again a new component, like how judicial activism was a phrase that was coming in the news repeatedly. Tribunalization of justice is also coming in the news nowadays, right? So what is tribunalization of justice? We have independent judiciary and integrated judiciary, right? When we have integrated judiciary, do we have space for tribunalization of justice? So this again wants you to critically think. Write down these words. Probably you will not understand the significance of it now, but someday when you see it in the paper, you'll remember, oh, one girl was talking like this about tribunalization of justice.
The micro themes. So basically will be around administrative reforms like civil services. There's a syllabus wording directly given as civil services, lateral entry, capacity, etc. Accountability related issues, RTI, citizen charter is directly mentioned. So you can see a lot of overlap with GS-4. So whatever you study here will be there also. That is at the end of GS-1, 2, 3, 4. I think that is one realize. All of this syllabus is divided mechanically, yes, for the sake of it, but ultimately it's about one and the same. It's a full circle, and you can utilize what I've learned here across papers. That you should start understanding. Then there is participation on SHGs, NGOs, pressure groups, MAMOs discussing about it, technology, e-governance, digital, AI, DPI, then regulations. So these are some repeated. These are the broad micro theme that GS2 governance has. So it doesn't ask about schemes. UPSC does not ask about what is this or not. It asks about delivery problems. State capacities. State has a capacity, and the capacity is limited. It has certain issues. Delivery of those. There's an excellent book by Karthik Muralidharan called Accelerating India's Development. Note of that book. It's an excellent book, a huge book. The entire book about state capacity. And he has given a number of examples across the book so that you can directly utilize. So the question will never be about PMJ, Ayushman Bharat, or a national health mission. It will be about accessibility, affordability, accountability, last mile delivery. Go through the PIQs, you understand that evaluated or around this, around these. Expected to write around this, not about prelims knowledge of which ministry, what is the budgetary allocation.
So the fourth way in which we are teaching you to analyze the question or the topic in question, right? First was in the morning, I told you about those 8 points here. Then the second one was about individual level, societal level. Then the third one was what? Third one was what? That was now only few minutes back. What was it? Constitutional morality and all, correct? Now, this is the fourth component. Accessibility, affordability, accountability, and last mile delivery. This will not only help you for governance, but also for ethics, right?
On any scheme, you just around these 4 lanes have some basic material. You have to worry. You will anyways have 4 points on your own, another 3-4 points from this angle, then enough. You write the opposite of it, have the cons, right? Side of it, have these. That's it.
So the big problem which everyone keep asking us, saying, I'm not able to generate points, I'm not able to generate points, or my points are the same as someone else's. It's very generic in nature. Now we are teaching you so many different ways to generate points. So it is for you now to analyze from the lens of these parameters. same thing. So we have come up with one more approach. Universal 6-lens framework for structuring any governance answer. Again, different lenses. Institution, technology, process, citizen, accountability, outcomes.
It as a single entity, and you can again break into a number of points. The first is institution. So any question in governance comes, there will be a certain body, certain institute that is responsible for it. We have a directly question coming on the Competition Commission of India, 23, I guess. So yes, now there is a body. What is it? How is it empowered? What are roles, powers, etc. You should be knowing. That is basic static material. Then you think about the second is process. What is the implementation pathway? I'm just taking an example of CCI. Now, what does it do? How does it implement? Its role is to make sure creates a competitive environment for various businesses.
Yeah, if I could just add on to what sir was saying, how did CCI come into the picture? In 2002, there was an act and CCI came into the 2002 na? There was an act and CCI came into the picture. How did India move from MRTP to CCI? We were analyzing abuse of dominant position. We said that no player in the Indian market should be in a dominant position, because if he is in a dominant position, the consumers are abused. But CCI doesn't look about abuse of dominant position. He is okay. Even if you have a monopoly, it's okay. Even if you have a dominant position in the market, it's okay. But as long as there is fair competition between all the market forces. So how did India transition from MRTP to CCI? So these are all aspects that you have to start thinking on your own. If some law has come, this is for your future, right? If some law has come, if a law has been promulgated, you first think, why was a new law required? Now the IPC was replaced by BNS, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. What was the necessity? Why did we had to replace something that was there for hundreds of years? Right? It was a law made during the colonial era, right? So now whatever act comes into the picture, you always find out why did it come into the picture? What are the basic features of that law? And how can this be used for better governance in my country? Right?
Then next, technology can be another lens at looking at it. Governance will be surrounded technology, because why is a technology introduced? What was done manually till now, it had certain problem of efficiencies, of inclusion, of leakage. To address all of that, technology. Now, once technology comes, does it solve all of the problem? There again, it gives new problems: digital divide, accessibility, etc. That is, then this should be your the IP CAO. CAO is like, who is the beneficiary? Citizen, accountability, outcomes. Who is the beneficiary? How is the performance measured? What results follow? There was a 2025 question that was directly with this lens, would answer directly the 25 question on governance. The civil services, usually questions will be on lateral entry, civil reforms. You should memorize at least 4-5 committees on civil service reforms. You have the Baswan committee, Surendranath committee, you have the very famous, forgetting to recollect it, then should remember all of those. Lateral entry debate, it's a debate that is going on and on. 2015. Again, the question might the need for lateral entry, pros, cons, yogi, bureaucratic accountability. So again, the theme can be like, I have to understand the importance, question on civil service, importance of services, civil services, challenges to address. Back to the first few minutes, the theme, you understand the causes, then you understand the implications. This should be the structure. Give out the challenges, you have to propose the reform measures, then you have to anchor around certain words. This is again questions on SHG, NGO. Here there will be certain questions, lot of programs by government regarding SHG. You have the Lakpati, have the SHG Panchasutras by the government, by the government directly use that. Then with the coming of FCRA, on again that was a question last year on the regulation of NGOs, the FCRA Act. On FCRA was related to the NGOs. All of this will come in reading newspapers, current affairs magazine regularly. Always emphasize the fact that paper should be followed by the monthly current affairs magazine. Don't read the compilations. Compilations will not help you understand a topic. It will only help you up topic. You have information about how the topic actually evolved. Let's say you are following a topic, the newspaper for 30 days. For example, delimitation. When that topic came, I feel at least every day there was a debate, there was an editorial op-ed on limitations newspaper. You're following it from day 1 to day 30. And at the end of the month, monthly current affairs magazine, also reading there. Across the 30 days, you had read the topic again and again from angle, supporting it, on giving balance to proposing the reforms. How do you satisfy all of those stakeholders? Then at the end of the month, you have a compilation. That's the monthly current affairs magazine. Now, because you have understood how the topic has evolved across weeks, across month, now a better position to understand the topic, which you would not have just by reading the monthly current affair item. That would have just given in max 2 pages, and that the topic would be closed. Or suddenly, when you look at the current affairs piece, all two, what is this? Then you will debate is unnecessarily complicated. You have to read all of this. That is why you understand, read your newspapers, then you will understand how the story moved. By the end of 30, naturally have better understanding of the topic, better than the rest. Produce points. You don't have to actually memorize anything, because you've read multiple times across the month and also followed it up with the current affairs material, which will act as a revision of all of this. So always practice current affairs in this order rather than just picking up or focusing on the compilations. Not have that analysis or the depth of understanding.
If you are not able to read the newspaper every day, you can also subscribe to certain YouTube videos which do daily newspaper analysis. So you can keep looking at the newspaper in your hand, and there will be somebody who will keep talking and analyzing the news from the lens of UPSC, right? So in order to break the inertia, I'm telling you this.
Yes, this should be the initial few months. Later on, ultimately, you have to develop the art of reading news on your own. Don't rely too much on spoon feeding. Initially, yes, as ma'am said, break the inertia to, because initially you will not understand topic as what importance and where do I link with the syllabus. That is where you can take the help. After a few months, do it on your own. So again, like for NGO, you look up from the economic angle, social angle, political angle, governance angle, women empowerment. Just the 5 lenses produce 2 points each, have 10 points for the answer. How you are going to reproduce easily manufacture points with each, not lose on time thinking for answers. E-governance framework, always start with the positives. Any governance question comes, or start with the positives. Positives, again, why do we need a technology? Transparency, accountability, the basic thing, repeating again and again. This is what most people will write. What is your role? You have to substantiate each particular example. You have to use the skala, the kutumba, etc., various other Bhumi portal, etc. You have, for example, DigiLocker, Gem portal, financial management service, etc. Then you are talking about challenges. Challenges, cybersecurity, inclusion, digital divide. This shows critical thinking. Always, as I said, you all have the ability, the maturity to look at a topic from both sides, not just look at, okay, everything is perfect about this technology. Technology comes in, solve all the problems. Not how you write your answer. Yes, these are the positive, the negative. Conclude with the reform pathway. That is how you answer. Some frameworks, like some has to be mandatory there in a governance answer.
This is ready-made. If I were you, I would have written down. This is ready-made. I don't have to think too much. I don't have to brainstorm only whenever I see governance.
Yes,
questions.
this is the most, I feel, I'm telling you, let's not do any I am go through this. 5, any question. Now, how do I look at the challenges? For any governance, identify the bottleneck. That, and mostly the on bottleneck. The question not be on positive side. The PM then is perfect. There will be certain bottlenecks. That is what he'll be highlighting. So, national health in certain governance, be able to think from these 5 lenses. First is the capacity deficit. That is like universal point that you can write across the various. Is India after 148 people have, there will be understaffing in every department. That is the data you can anywhere. You can quote the data of the judges to population ratio, student to pupil ratio, the pupil to teacher to pupil ratio. There is doctors to patients ratio. These are standard data that you have to get from various sources, etc. Second is the coordination failure. You can talk about infrastructure development, forest clearance, then tribal group doing the pressure groups coming and halting it, then the governance. How there's one event, how departments are not able to coordinate and why there is delay. That first. Secondly, then accountability. There's no redressal, there is no audit culture, etc. That is something. Access barrier. Technology does not solve everything. There will be divide. There will be a divide within a divide. The digital divide. Then that can be rural and urban. Then there is between youth and the old age. Then men and women. Data for all of this can all barrier.
When you're writing an answer, no, generally in the examination, you can only think of only probably 2 from here, 2 from here, and 1 from somewhere else. That's it. You cannot think. I mean, there will be a certain mental block where you'll not be able to explore all the angles. So when something is readily available, something that is playing optically on your eyes, when you're able to visualize it in front of you, and if this is like readily available to me, I don't have to think at all. I mean, this is what I think.
What you and this will understand only once you start writing answers. Start writing one of the governance answer question, then you will understand. Difficult points. It will beyond the 4-3. After that, 4th, 5th, very difficult. Be stuck. Then that is where all of this come in handy. Time and what do I have a frame? Dimensions. Your job is over. Then your shift. This is the utility of all of these classes or efforts. Then there will be, if there is no resource, underfunding, there is a resource, but it is not underutilized. Corruption, etc. How you generate points on just with one dimension. Again, and focus.
Mantra to approaching governance related questions is first identifying the problems. Governance related problem, identify. Brainstorming starts only after you identify the problem. So first you identify the problem and different components of the problem, identify the bottlenecks also. Okay, then figure out what are the institutions are at play. What are the institutions that should have taken care of the governance problem, or what institution should come into action to take care of the governance related problem. Then reforms that have been probably introduced in our country, or reforms that are there elsewhere, or reforms that have taken place only in specific states, which can be a good example for countrywide reform, right? And then the outcome. Okay, so as I told you in the morning, you have to study social justice with society. Social justice and society, you can finish in 3 days. How do you study social justice? Easy way to study social justice, tell me. You look at the syllabus, make those 1 pages. Okay, other than that, you will pick up the SDGs. Each of the SDGs, you will prepare 1 pager on that. Irrespective of which coaching institution gives you what, that's how you should go about social justice. Because each of those pointers in SDGs, what are SDGs? How many are there? So on each of them, what will you do? 1 pager notes. Okay? In those notes, what will you do? For each SDG, you will find out stats. What is a good way to find out stats for social justice? NFHS, right? Census has not yet happened. So latest data from NFHS 5, can we collect? Easy to collect? By finishing 17 themes under SDGs, you would have virtually finished everything required for social justice. As in your basic framework, your basic blueprint, your foundation is done. Everything that comes in the paper, even if it is a dynamic topic or something that has come in the news, or something like AI and drones, which are operating on the basis of social justice topic, you can easily answer them, right? First page. Okay. So what do you, generally people make mistakes of, forming list of government schemes for social justice, budget allocations, current affairs, etc. But what do you need to know? The root causes, the human development deficits. So now, if you have prepared on 17 themes under the SDGs, you are in a position to answer any given question, right? Those SDGs were formulated on the basis of all the problems, social problems prevailing in our society, right? So by preparing on the 17 points, you have virtually finished studying for social justice. Okay. Apart from the syllabus pointers. I'm saying in addition to that, you have to prepare on these SDGs. What are they testing you? How does a society question differ from a social justice question? We discussed society questions. No, so what was society questions? What were they talking to you about? Globalization, aggressive consumer, urbanization, how the society is evolving, problems of the society, issues of the society, law and order problems because of urbanization. That becomes a social justice problem, distributive justice. All these are social issues, right? So you need to understand how to write an answer for GS2. You have to write it from the lens of those 17 SDGs. You see if there is poverty, if there is gender inequality. Try to, so now we gave you 5-6 different approaches, right? Another approach you can add to all of this is SDGs. If you're not able to brainstorm, immediately think of the SDGs. See if SDG 1 has any impact or correlation, interrelation. Okay. What UPSC actually tests is access, inclusion, equity, quality, and outcomes. What do you understand by this? By access. What do you understand by access? Yeah. Accessibility is a issues in accessibility is a roadblock to social justice, right? Then inclusion problems. Even with e-governance initiatives, we have inclusion issues. So that is also causing a problem for social justice, right? Equity, inequality leading to social injustice. Again, equity issues, quality and outcomes. Other than those 17 SDGs, if you have to weigh it against any other parameters, it has to be these 5, right? These are some broad themes for social justice.
What's the utility of these broad themes when you're reading paper items? Question on, it's an editorial on education, on learning outcomes. So you strictly, now you precisely know where to map. This article goes back to GS2 social justice. Now there's a question on a debate on poverty statistics, poverty calculation. Now know where does this go? Goes to GS2 social justice and GS3 economic. This is how you should be able to map any bit around women rights, etc. Be both to society, and so don't think any particular topic as only it fits into only one or one part of a particular. It can be used across papers 1, 2, 3, 4. All of that can be utilized in, even if it is relevant to your optional paper, there also. Try to think all of this paper neutral content. So you will have maximum utility all of this effort. Broadly, the areas are health, education, women, vulnerable sections, poverty, children. You go through the syllabus, there's a clearly it has mentioned about elderly minorities. And all of this is DPSPs. All of this is directive principle. You can directly relate all of this to a particular DSP. That is precisely, else it would have been in the Indian society itself. Why would this be in GS2? They're following polity, governance, and social justice. There is a reason why this is same paper as polity. All of this polity gives you the structure of this political structure of the country. Governance is at play. something, state capacity has failed. That's what we learned. Governance is state capacity. Now that it has failed in doing that, that is why we all have problems, issues around these things. And when you're addressing it, that is social justice.
And like we said, this paper 2 is all about depth. So when you're doing women, you're not doing it upar se. You are doing it in depth. You're seeing what is women empowerment, what is women emancipation, what is women in development, what is women-led development, what is glass ceiling, what is glass cliff, what is maternal mortality ratio, what is the sex ratio, what is the female infanticide
What
status.
is the periodic labor force? What is the you have the various statistics of wage gap. There's you can use the case study of the economic Nobel Prize for Economics last year, Austin Golden, who won on wage gap. You can directly utilize that example. Examples are around you everywhere. You should be mature enough or aware. Your eyes and ears open, and you across people.
This is where curiosity comes into the picture, right? Social justice micro themes, certain repeated themes and more stressed upon themes. But if you do all 17 SDGs, all this is covered. What is the biggest issue with respect to social justice preparation? People mention about certain initiatives. They don't tell you the problems in accessibility, problems of vulnerability, or how there are implementation gaps. Okay, you have to be a little more critical. So this paper is all about critical thinking and analytical reasoning, right? Thumbs up quite.
Most people just about schemes, jot down, memorize certain. That's it. Not an average aspirant will just write initiatives, list the schemes by focus on the government action, say what are the policy. What you should actually identify structural problem. What's the problem in that scheme policy? Analyze outcomes and the gaps. There's a question on Swachh Bharat mission. Understand the structural problem, analyze the outcomes and gaps, then focus on the human development, because there's a World Bank report on Swachh Bharat mission and its effects on the IMR and the MMR. What it said, post this, after the Swachh Bharat mission, the IMR and the MMR and various human development really use such data and see for all of those questions, then evaluate the policy effectiveness. So you should be focusing on this rather than just all of this important, but they themselves cannot be pointers. Place them as substantiate to all of this. If certain policy name or scheme name that you remember, you can utilize as example. This write a point here as example to this. You can utilize all of that prelims knowledge. The AAA QIU framework, you should this is for the social justice, regardless of whatever question comes on social. Think of access, then affordability, then availability, then quality. For example, let's take the example of education. Access to education, affordability of education, availability of quality of education, outcomes, learning outcomes.
If I didn't show you this slide and if I had to just ask you what are the issues with education, it will take time for you to think. It will take you 5 minutes at least to think all of this. But if I have something like this triple AQIO, I can immediately think about what is affordability, accessibility, availability, quality, inclusion, outcomes immediately. And I'm saving so much time by having this ready-made pointers. So health and education are very important themes of UPSC, especially in GS paper 2. Actually, all across all papers, but especially across GS paper 2. Okay, because even the governance related questions can be related to health and education. So you have to have more material on health and education. Like I told you, easy to form graphs. Remember, we spoke about literacy level, we spoke about health parameters. I spoke to you about diabetes. You can make easy bar graphs. Get it? So for health and education, what are the common pointers you can have? What is the infrastructure currently? What are the human resources contributing to these two pillars? What is the doctor-patient ratio, ASHA workers, then access and equity, quality, financing, how much of the budget is spent on health and education, how can we compare this to developed nations? In developed nations, how much percentage of the budget are they spending on health and education? All these are for you to think, right? Then equity and outcomes, technology, how technology is being used increasingly in health and education initiatives, right? And employability. Right, sir?
8 frameworks, you just produce 2 points each number of points. Now you don't have to worry what will I write next. You have an exhaustive list of points. Actually, you have to limit your points after once you have such
Women and vulnerable groups framework.
question on women or any particular vulnerable group, be it OBC, SC, ST, minorities, disabled, elderly, etc. You apply this framework. You can readily reproduce lots of points, and this is how you should also be making your notes. Any group question on all of these comes. The first and fourth, you talk about social parameters. Comes, you are talking about patriarchy, about caste norm. On economic, we talked about wage gap, asset ownership. Lot of data on asset ownership by women. Then financial access. Third is political representation. Then then about reservation. Then agency. I've heard about Sarpanch Pati, proxy. That again, legal institution. Legal institution is a framework that you have to identify for each of these groups. Disability, for the disabled, you have DPSP. Then you have Rights of Persons with Disability Act 20. Then all of that you for women at least 4-5 lot of exhaustive list of acts, articles in the constitution that you should be memorizing, directly reproduce. Again, the SDGs is linked back to the SDGs. So this is how you are going to think simultaneously, readily available points. Apply all of this to women, disabled, minorities, and elderly. For elderly, can you remember any legal or institutional framework for the elderly? Elderly. Yes, that again can be. There is Vaya Vandana Yojana where government is paying certain. Then there is maintenance of parents and act indirectly. Yes, is acts in related. There is the super economy.
And there was also a judgment which said that children cannot oust their parents from the
Yes,
house.
you can utilize judgments. Don't think that Supreme Court judgments is for polity. Them across papers, across GS4 also. You can use it for substantiating your argument GS4, say GS2. All of this as paper neutral content. So how do you build a social justice answer? But despite numerous interventions, malnutrition is challenging. Discuss. So there are certain notes which you have to identify. First, you talk about the accessibility issue. That accessibility can go down to number of frameworks. Accessibility issues related to region, caste, gender, etc. So you have 3-4 points. Then affordability can be another dimension. Delivery failure. Why does it happen? Can be because lack of inclusivity, technology related issue, digital divide, awareness, lack of awareness. Then various divide, as I mentioned, urban divide, etc. Then behavioral change. I come up with very good, but people are not responding because of certain behavioral rigidity. For example, the midday meals. Now the eggs for children, certain practices. Parents say they are not allowing the children to have those eggs. So that is, you can directly bring numerous examples. You can directly quote. You can write that point and say example. Then institute capacity. Again, governance overlap. Capacity, lack of capacity, have the requisite number of professionals in the field. How you are building a social justice node in this chain is a paragraph answer. Do not open with government launched push. Can open with the structural problem, then diagnose it why. Have challenges, address the challenges. You have reforms, application problem, address the have solutions. That is more than enough. Health, write about the quality, talk about participation, talk about the delivery, poverty, you talk about capability. Themes, public health. Go through the PYQs, numerous questions on public health, national health policy, learning outcome. If you have to substantiate any question, learning outcomes, you have to come up with that. Your data, you have to come have the triangle, the types of hunting.
Sorry, sir. I'll just add on to what you were saying. So now when you talk about malnutrition, what all can you think of? Stunting, wasting. Some people forget that even obesity and being overweight is also malnutrition. So that's where your thinking capability or cognitive capability comes into action. So, carry on. Yeah. So nutrition, women empowerment. Can you see all of these points? Are any of them outside the 17 SDGs? So you are well prepared to address any question given on these topics, right? So we are just repeating and reiterating how you have enough information and enough order if you prepare on those 17 SDGs. Sir, I'm not predicting this. Yes. So firstly, while answering social justice questions, before also we did, what do? Find out the problem. Break down the problem. Find out different components of the problem. It can never be just one problem. There will be various components to the same problem, right? Then diagnose the root causes. Find out why are these problems happening. Next, propose institutional reforms, or if already reforms are taking place, if there are any gaps in those reforms, provide certain suggestions to narrow those gaps, right? Then anchor the outcomes. There has to be a shift in your thinking from now on. Whatever you start analyzing, you will do critical thinking and analytical reasoning. You will think like an officer. If you are given a situation, like not just in mains, even for the interview, they will ask you, if you are the district collector, what would you do in the domain of education? What would you do in the domain of health? How would you make your district better? Right? So the process starts from now, right? There has to be a shift in your thinking. You're no more a normal person. Your life is contributing towards the development of the nation, towards uplifting millions of people, right? So your thought process also should be in that line. Don't just memorize the programs, right? Think of the programs as a catalyst to reduce the pain and suffering of others.
The core shift you should start doing now. Not just think of, but think these lines now.
Last part, I heard a lot of
Yes. Last
voices.
module.
So they were like,
So this is the last part. IR part again. IR is something that is, I feel, will have issues because it's very dynamic and with PSR optional here, guys have some. So again, of whether you are from PSR or not, my suggestion is start reading content on editorial and across but beyond that, even in the interviews, if are from PSR or not, most of your questions will be on develop that habit right now on IR. That respective have an that will come in but come in hand. So again, don't worry about data, facts, figures, all of that. That should not be your primary concern. International about how do I protect, how do we protect strategic our country, what is at stake our country, what is India doing, what is failing to do. Lines. Higher answers, it will be analytic. That is what the newspaper editorials of the trade, the US. Those numbers are again only for substantiate. Those themselves cannot be argument. So again, the biggest myth about IR is current affairs. Every bilateral relation, every institution or multilateral in IR going not just, it's not about just last 1 year or 2 years. BRICS was formed in, then you have IMF, World Bank. So you cannot say question on World Bank or IMF as current affairs. It is happening across years, across decades. So have understanding of all of these agencies, all of these bodies, the bilateral relation, India-Russia relation. It is going to be current affairs for you only because you are reading it now. But have certain basic understanding and the history, all of this, India, US, India, China, all of this. Then whatever you read in the newspaper, you are utilizing substantiate. The underlying core idea will come from the basics, the mains note. Thereafter, you are building on the articles to substantiate. IR is not just current affairs. It is have certain facts, static, and then items is coming on the newspaper. So you have to, whatever item you bricks, should be able to understand what is the strategic theme. Strategic theme is de-dollarization, framework beyond the UN bodies like the IMF or the World Bank. Then based on that, there will be last year question IMF, where again that was because crisis IMF, the lack of representation of global South in IMF. So that is why the question came. It's not just that out of the blue question on IMF came. So once you're reading newspapers continuously, you will only be able to identify of the IR questions that are going to come in. I'm not boasting, but I had predicted at least 4 to 5 questions I felt would come in PSR. Straight away that they were a direct hit. Because you will understand that knack once you are going through news every day. Immediately it might feel a big task, but 6 months you're reading your newspaper continuously, you will be in a position to judge that okay, this topic can be a relevant one in the upcoming main. So IR syllabus at a glance, first and foremost, India and neighborhood. Confuse syllabus itself, IR as one single entity. It has distinctions. First is India and neighborhood. Neighborhood means Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, etc. Maldives. Then there is bilateral relation. Bilateral relations are beyond this neighborhood. India, US, India, China, India, Russia.
So one pager notes ready on each of them: India, Pakistan, India, China, India, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, India, Nepal. So you'll do one page. Got it? Also tracing the historic, I mean the evolving relations with each of these countries, like a timeline.
Then so that forms bilateral relation. Then regional grouping. BRICS, I2U. Whatever important in the last 6 months for the mains, that will immediately be part of the mains. Have the question on Quad in 2022. A direct hit because that year I2 was a framework that was mandatorily was natural for us to, and that is what happened. Direct hit. Every year there will be was a, so for that, then there is international IMF. That is why I asked you to understand and read about the history of this structure of this. Again, come in handy for prelims also. Have this understanding, the represent diaspora. Direct questions on can be, and this itself can be how it will affect a neighbor, how it will affect so there's a question on India China. What most people will think about the allied trade, what UP strategic competition that India faces, then the security dilemma, economic interdependence. They're economically interdependent and yet reduce that, yet we have a territory. That is why we cannot move away from China. We are dependent economically. Then just reproduce, then reach our balance. Think, have some answers. Then first we start with this countries. For example, these are 5 strategic themes. Be it India, neighborhood, India, bilateral relations, or India or any other global governance on these lines. Security framework. Think of India, US, and security foundational military alliances, facts that were signed from CASA, etc., Quad, etc. Economy, talk about the sanctions and the supply chain frameworks, alternative. Then third dimension, connectivity. You have the IMEC integration for example, supply chain technology. You have the STAR program, yeah, and NASA coming together. And it comes, can talk about this. Diplomacy, AI summit. Think of all of this. Can talk about how US exited the climate pact, Paris Agreement. So similarly for neighborhood, any question neighborhood, talk on the, first of all, India, China, or India, Sri Lanka, India, Bangladesh. I will take the example of India, Bangladesh. Historical angle. There will be shared past because of the language, culture, partition, legacy, then civilizational time. Then comes the strategic Bangladesh, strategic location, and how it is important for India's own internal security. Then economic, for the various, Bangladesh is the largest trading partner in South Asia. Talk about that, various connectivity project, energy project done with them. Security, have lot of cross-border threats, maritime security, large scale integration, lots of similar size, porous bomb. Way forward, talk about you, BIMSTEC, you, SARC as a platform, address Bangladesh, is it larger uh, interaction with Bangladesh. All the neighborhoods have your, what is them, data, facts, and various etc. That's it. Ready. That comes in IR about India, Sri Lanka, India, Bangladesh. Ready to write. Will get at least 4 out of 10 with substantiation, out 5 out of 10. That's it. And a diagram. That's it. The real battle is about this half mark. After when I said 5.5, but that's the truth. 5 to 5.5 takes some extra effort. What is separating an candidate just at close to the cutoff, made cutoff, half mark to at least 40 questions, half mark, 20 marks, that is 60 marks. Someone who is at the border will clear, not just clear, but force himself into the interview list. Someone who is to the interview list with that additional 60 will force top 250. Yeah. 30 marks apart. I drew 30 diagrams in diagram section. Power of half mark. What orientation? Important. How do I improve mark? Will come in through. Then this is bilateral relations. Always think of India, US. Always remember, India neighborhood is different from bilateral relation. India, Russia relationship matter to India's interest. India, Russia, you can always think of Russia being that all-weather friend. Never think that is the strategic relevance. Then areas of cooperation have defense, yes, the oil trade, people to people ties, forums like. Then you have challenges, China angle, ideology. Then difficulty in balancing West on one hand and Russia on the other. China is a pressure point. With respect to BRICS, both have different expectations from BRICS. Way forward. Now you talk about how you convergence, areas of development beyond just oil. So this is this framework for any bilateral. Then global grouping, you have the IMF, WB, any global grouping have this.
We are giving you only approach, lenses, 7, 8 lenses over now. We are talking specifically for IR, okay? Economic angle, strategic angle, geopolitical angle, institutional angle, and global south. You analyze all the topics, all the subjects, or all the controversial aspects that are coming through these 5 broad lenses. Okay. The PESTDG brainstorming model. Also, we are helping. So this mentorship program is all about giving you approaches in order to help you guys generate points and diverse points. Like morning we were discussing some. So for the purpose of IR, you can use this. Okay, political angle, economic angle, strategic angle, technological angle, diaspora, and global governance angle. Ready-made parameters for you to write answers, right? Hope you guys made a note of it. You're not getting the slides. Same thing they're explaining. You know what is political angle. I think we've reiterated and stressed enough on the importance of the political angle as well as the economic angle. And strategic angle specifically is very, very unique to this paper because it's not coming in the question paper unless and until there is some strategic angle to it. Right, sir? And technological angle and global governance angle.
Very repeated theme. Neighborhood always a question. Yeah, neighborhood, neighbor first policy. Who's with neighborhood first policy? SARC, BIMSTEC, comparison of how they are different. Yeah, China relation, lot of questions. This is a topic that you cannot miss. You should some. What you can do is for every India, China, India, US, India, Russia, go to Google, search India, China, the Hindu, read the first India, China, Indian Express articles. You will have exhaustive articles that you've read. Don't have to chase any material. Have most every uh, bilateral. Then question on global south. This is a topic that again and again. Global south multilateralism multipolarity, all these are tapping ultimately talk about the same thing of developing uh, global governance strategic. That word, buzzword in politics. Autonomy is a buzzword in everything surrounds it. Autonomy is ability of a country, spite of all non-alignment point of. There's something called as the 5 phase in foreign policy by S. Jaishankar. 6 phases of foreign policy. Go through that. Understand what how Indian foreign policy that itself can be.
PSIR guys must.
Yes, guys, that was direct hit last year. Relation paper 2 was explained and that explicitly mentioned S. Jaishankar 6 phase mandatory is this in think beyond just that very paper. All of this should be like paper neutral content, have the ability to utilize this content for one, GS-2, GS-3, GS-4. That should come naturally to you. Difficult, but that is something developed. Forms multilateralism, repeated theme, number of articles, at least 2, 3 week. Make exhaust notes out of that is more than current affairs, as I said, a trigger point. Try this. That's the more than
Do you guys have any questions?
we are open for questions.
And same thing as morning as I did that entire grid and checklist and all for this all.
Any doubts, questions? Take up for the next 5-10 minutes, and we'll wind up the session. Just it. I'll share. That should not be.
You want the PPT?
Don't be a PDF collector. I'm telling you, be a district. Okay, I'll share it.
You can subscribe to his channel on Telegram.
I've al- you have a lot of value addition material on my Telegram channel. Go through it. Everything that we've highlighted, data, commit, judgment, keywords, everything I had done for my readily on the YouTube Telegram channel. And
That's easily 1 month of hard work less.
1 month, I started doing.
No, I'm telling you, for mains, for the
For
purpose
mains,
of
yes, yes, for mains, yes, readily it is like.
Otherwise, I would say 1 year, but
Yes.
yeah, 1 month of
Yes.
hard work less for the purpose of mains. Like if you were like me, I use my mentor's notes ready made.
Yes.
If you're smart, you'll just access that. And if you want to add something which was implemented since Jan of 2026, you'll add. That's
Yes.
it.
Handy. But create all those value addition as a primary. That's what you can max do with that. The thing, once doing the value addition material on your own, that is when you will have the confidence to readily utilize in your answers. Always have that fear, not be knowing what context I put that keyword, what context I have brought that supreme. You will only have a peripheral understanding. You remember it, memorize it, that's it. Not have the courage to that fact paper. So just use it as a reference. build your validation material. That's it. Else, ask. Preparation, like you're not giving me from now, January, preparing for you. It is not prelims. Prelims preparation set of main. Have to integrate in main. By the time you're all of your syllabus, automatically most of the things already of the prelims syllabus also. Thereafter, from February, complete. This should be your ideal framework from till January end.
Just adding, so by virtue of doing all of this, right, your prelims preparation would have doubled or tripled. As in, you would have gained so much knowledge that your knowledge base for prelims would have doubled or tripled. Because this is 17 subjects. How many subjects are you doing for prelims? Much lesser, right? So this will give you in-depth knowledge, and also you will be in a better position to analyze and think. This time prelims you would have seen it needs people who are critically thinking, right? So it will help you in prelims. But ideally, all the serious aspirants all across India, pan India, from June to at least September end, they will all do mains based preparation.
Anything
And
else?
even if you guys are not clearing the prelims, you have to write the mains on the next day after after the people who write the mains, right? Only then will you understand where you stand. And if you don't do that, don't do that, you are doing injustice to yourself. No point.
That's it. What you do is now in that article you come across a judgment. You have maintained a list of judgment sheet. Pick that judgment, drop it, that list, then write a few phrases. Come across words, place them, write them down in the GS-2 keywords. Similarly, you do across all of this. Now, with that editorial, what do? It is a perspective. Let's say that editorial delimitation. You are reading it first, then you are very max to 6 line summarize, containing it somewhere else. And whenever you are reading GS2 static portion, you read it, and all the compilations of all these articles compiled for GS2, GS3, you are reading them along with it. Then you be able to better understand and apply it to think for being very now let me take a selfie. Please. Tomorrow I'll be taking GS3. Still the mood to listen. Can join it.